Alright, so here's a little upgrade that I'm doing on. This will only work if you have the 18-inch or bigger wheels, 18-inch, 19, or whatever size you have. If you have a 17-inch rim, this will not work for you. But what I'm doing, I've already replaced one side, but I'm upgrading the calipers. So this is the one I just took off my car. It is a single piston. And here's the one that I am adding, which is a dual piston. Don't know how well you can see, but the size is much different on it. But I'll show you how I'm replacing it. So you will need new caliper with brackets, you will need new brake pads, and you will need a new rotor. I got these for Ford Edge ST, I believe it was. I believe that's the only, and I think Lincoln Continental or MKZ has the dual pistons. So here's the driver's side that I got finished with it. I know you probably can't see much, obviously, since the wheel's on it, but that will give you enough clearance. This is an 18-inch rim. You know those Harbor Freight flashlights? I can fit that between the caliper and the rotor, and I'll have plenty of playroom. Therefore, I know I'm not scraping on there. So like I said, you will have to have an 18-inch rim or bigger to do this. Alright, so here's the passenger side, and what I'd like to do first, obviously you will have to remove this fella here. Take a little flat blade screwdriver, go between the brake pad and the rotor, if I can get to it. You just want to slowly pull towards you until it bottoms out. So that pushed the piston all the way inside. Now when you go to remove this, be very careful. I've had these go flying out and hit me. So what I like to do too sometimes is have my hand kind of over it, therefore don't go flying out while I'm prying on top of it. So basically just want to kind of pry onto it. Luckily this one didn't go flying. I had the driver's side that went flying and hit me. And yes, that does hurt. But anyway, so I got this all pushed back in place. You will have boots, cover plugs, one down here. Then to take it off is going to be a H7. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but that's what will fit onto here. Then on the new calipers, it takes a H11. It's a lot bigger socket. So what I'm going to do is break these two loose here. Go and set the caliper off to a side. Alright, so I got the caliper sitting off to a side. Now to take the bracket off, it's going to be an 18 millimeter. I got these are going to be on quite tight, so I got Milwaukee saving the day to break these loose because I couldn't get it off with the regular 1/2-inch ratchet. So alright, so I got that off of there and the rotor off of there. Now I got my new rotors here. What I like to do is take either throttle body cleaner or brake clean. I always wipe down the surface of this. Now I know you ain't supposed to touch it when you got dirty hands. I've cleaned down both sides of this rotor here to make sure there's no grease or that protector stuff to keep it from rusting. Alright, so I got it on. I like to use the lug nut to hold the rotor in place, make sure it sits flush. Since I am going bigger on the rotors, check your dust shield. Make sure they're not going to rub on the rotors. This side here is going to rub a little bit. Nope, just got a little gap. I always like to check to make sure this dust shield's not rubbing on the rotor. And if they are, you can always take a little flat blade screwdriver, kind of bend it backwards a little bit. Now I know you ain't really supposed to be prying against the rotor, but just check the dust shield, make sure they're not rubbing on the rotor. You could also turn like that and see and listen to see if you hear any rubbing noise. Now of course the caliper sitting on there and it's going to do a little rubbing. So now I'm ready to go and switch out the caliper. What I'm going to do is have my new caliper right next to me. I believe this is a Yes, 12 millimeter. So what I like to do before I zip that off, because I know I'm going to lose brake fluid, is I like to top mine off. Therefore that gives me plenty of time to zip the old rotor, old caliper off and put the new one on without going dry on the reservoir. Also too, I always like to put the bracket on before I do the caliper. Therefore I can look to see if the rotor is going to rub along the caliper, which in this case is not. It's got plenty of room. So now I'm going to go ahead and proceed with replacing the caliper. Alright, so I got the new caliper installed on there. Make sure this is tight. Make sure you got those crush washers, one on the bolt and one on the inside, sandwiched together. So one's being sandwiched on the caliper itself in the brake line, the other one's going to be sandwiched on the bolt in the brake line. So now I'm ready to put the pads on. Now you'll have to put this inside of here first. Then on this one here you will have to pull, so depending what brake pads you got, this is factory, you got to pull this blue little tape off of there and you can just set it. And it's I'd recommend greasing up the little ears on it so they slide nicely on it. Alright, so I got the caliper installed, bolts tightened down, brake pads in. Now I'm ready for this little piece here. Now I'm not for sure, I just always have to kind of wing it. I start in one end of it, then I'll do the other end. I'll take like a little flat blade screwdriver and kind of pry while pushing this into the hole. But you do want to be careful since this is spring loaded. Make sure it doesn't come flying out on you, so have a rag or have your hand holding it just in case it does pop out of the hole. Alright, got that in place now. Got the boots on, everything zipped down tight. Now I'm ready to bleed the brakes. Now since I don't have another person with me, I'm using a software. You can either use Forescan or UCDS to bleed the brakes if you don't have anybody. So what I'm doing here, so I'm going by myself. Take like a little hose and a little Pepsi bottle or whatever, any container you want. Just make sure you dispose it correctly. Don't just dump it down the water drain or sink. I just want to make sure that that's in all the way. All right.